Well, thanks for joining for another noon devotional. I'm having a great time with a new Bible reading plan that I decided to use for 2021. And actually, it's a 2-year plan. And like many of you, if you're in a Bible reading plan, you probably are in the book of Genesis as part of your Bible reading plan. I certainly am. And one of my very favorite stories in the book of Genesis is about Joseph. Of course, Joseph, beginning over about chapter 37, really for about half of the book of Genesis, is devoted to Joseph. And we're all familiar with that story about Joseph and his coat of many splendor colors. And you remember the story of what happened to Joseph. His brothers were jealous, and they threw him in a pit. And these traders came along, and they sold him to these traders, and they went on to Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, who was like the number one man under Pharaoh. And, he got in all kind of trouble there. But it all turned out real good because he finally became what you and I would call the prime minister of Egypt. He was in charge of everything. And because Pharaoh saw that everything he put his hands on, everything he did, every decision he made, it turned out great. So Pharaoh said, look, obviously God's hand is on you, so I'm going to put you in charge of everything. Well, a great famine takes place in the land. It's in Genesis chapter 42. It's such an exciting chapter. And Jacob sent all of his sons except one, his youngest, over to Egypt to buy grain. And it's a very touching story to read. And of course, when they got there, their brother that they had thrown in the pit and sold into to the traders when they came by, they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them. And of course, they bowed down and they wanted to buy some grain. And he decided to, somewhat test them. And they didn't recognize him. He was dressed in royal attire. And so what he said was, I'm going to put you guys in prison because I think you're spies. And then the Bible says after 3 days, he let them out of prison. And he said, okay, I'm going to keep one of you here. You've told me you have a younger brother at home. So I'm going to send the others of you back, and you get this younger brother. When you bring him back, I'll know then that you were not spies and that you really just came to buy grain. It's a very, very touching story. Well, in the process of all that, when they did not think Joseph was able to hear them, they had a little conversation among themselves. Let me read quickly. It says, speaking among themselves, they said clearly, we're being punished because of what we did to Joseph long ago. We saw his anguish when he pleaded for his life, but we would not listen. That's why we're in this trouble. And then he went on to say, did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? Reuben asked. But you wouldn't listen. And now we have to answer for his blood. In other words, these brothers have come to the conclusion they're in this mess. They have this trouble because of the bad that they did to their brother long ago. Now, they didn't realize who they were talking to was their brother. But the point I want to make, what I want you to think with about a moment, this idea that all trouble comes as a result of things we've done wrong in our life. Now, it is true, the Bible says in Galatians chapter 6, that whatever man sows, he's going to reap. And that's just a principle of God. But that's one verse in the Bible, and you don't build your doctrine, your theology on one verse in the Bible. The fact of the matter is, in the Bible, we read about people who had enormous trouble, and yet they had not done anything wrong. Classic example, Job. There was a man who lived in the land of Uz. His name was Job. He was upright, feared God, departed from evil, and just lived a godly life. Now, that's a good man. But Job, as you read the book of Job, he had all these things happen, not because of anything he had done. And what this is all about, and it's something we deal with often in our lives, this whole issue of the sovereignty of God and the free will of man. In other words, everything that happens, is it we did something wrong and we're being punished by it? Is that what the Bible teaches? Well, it is true that many of the troubles we go through in life are the consequences of decisions that we've made and things we've done. But everything that happens in life God is not beating us with a whip because we've done something wrong. In fact, if that's how God works, we would all be in ICU in hospitals all over America. That's what we would deserve. But we have a loving God, and that's not his character, that's not his nature. So, we won't settle it today. I'm not sure it'll ever be settled on earth, the problem of evil and suffering. But just know this, that there are consequences to your decision, yes, but everything that happens is not because you've done something bad. Sometimes things happen and we have no real answer. I love that verse in Deuteronomy 29, verse 29. The secret things belong to the Lord. Thank God today that we have a God of love, we have a God of mercy, and we have a God, even when we're in trouble, he helps us through it. Well, have a good rest of this day and a good week.